Life is a series of oddities, but that's something that doesn't need an apology.
You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my Wicked Winter series. I'm Brooke Makenna, but this video is just unexplainable. But I'm about to explain it to you anyways. You are not going to believe that this is a true story, that somebody could actually be sentenced for a crime and then they forget to lock them up for it. By the way, I'm posting 31 days of continuous content for Wicked Winter this December, so if you want to continue watching content like this or watching me, I'd love if you would subscribe with the post notification bell on and leave a little, thumbs up or comment if you want to be nice. Now let's get back to this story. So his name was Cornelius Michael Anderson, and back in 1999, he was 23 years old when he was sentenced to 13 years in prison for the robbery of a fast food restaurant's manager. Then he went through a set of different appeals where he was finally released on bail while waiting for $21,000, and that was back in 2002. But after that, he was meant to go to prison, but no one ever picked him up. He waited for a phone call, a knock on the door, or even a letter, but nothing ever came. He even asked about when he was going to prison. He sent them his new address when he moved, but still nobody picked him up. Then in 2015, they began the process of letting him out of prison when they realized he wasn't there, nor had he ever been. And this man, who had robbed a Burger King manager on August 15th of 1999 in St. Charles, Missouri, never served his sentence. He had done this with an accomplice and gotten away with $1,650, and they were caught because a witness actually saw them fleeing from the scene and wrote down their license plate number, which was tracked back to Cornelius Mike Anderson. When they went to search his home for the weapon that was used in the Burger King robbery, they didn't find one, but they did find a brochure for one, which was enough to get him a trial. They caught him. They did everything they were supposed to, except for the part where they made sure he was actually in the cell where they said he was. Someone messed up big time. And now it was 13 years later, and at 6:30 a.m., the morning after they realized, they surrounded his house. 8 armed officers surrounded with protective bodysuits and carrying shields while they knocked on the door. They shouted, "Hey, open the door." And the guy behind the door asked who it was, and they told him the U.S. Marshals. And he unlocked the door, where they then told him he was supposed to be in prison 13 years ago. But then they realized they couldn't take him away right then and there because he had a 2-year-old daughter waiting for him inside, and he was the only one taking care of her at the time. She was taken into care elsewhere, and he was taken to state prison. He said it felt like it was a living nightmare, and all he could think about was his wife and children. You see, what had happened was, after waiting a while for someone to come and get him, and they weren't, he asked his former attorney what he should do because he feared his case was being overlooked. And the attorney just told him to just prepare for the day when they would come to get him, because it could be any time. But I'm sure this attorney wasn't expecting it to be years later. Mike didn't run though. He stayed put in Webster Groves, Missouri. He started a construction business. He paid taxes. He married a woman named LaQuana. He had 4 kids. He built a home and coached youth football. He worked at the video section of his local church where he went to church. He was an all-around great family guy to the community. He seemed to be a changed man from 13 years ago due to this clerical error, is what they were calling it. But now he was going to be 50 years old when he was released from prison. But he kept a great attitude the whole time, and he said from prison, "I had this sense in me that everything was okay, no matter what was going to happen, that everything was going to be okay. And to this day, I still have that." However, the community did not agree with his imprisonment 13 years later, and they put a petition on change.org that got 35,000 signatures urging the state to free him. After a year in prison with his wife struggling with 4 kids to make ends meet, he finally had his hearing, and his new attorney went in saying that it wasn't cruel to have a 13-year punishment, but having a 13-year punishment 13 years later, making it 26 years, was cruel and unusual. He said that the state consented Mr. Anderson's bail 13 years ago, and to now say that they didn't is just wrong. He said they would take no responsibility for 13 years ago the Missouri Department of Corrections filing him as a prisoner and then never looking into it again. Mike had been able to accomplish for himself what the criminal justice system couldn't accomplish for many. And thankfully the judge agreed, saying that yes, it was a serious crime, but he seemed like he was a changed man. The judge said, "You've been a good father, you've been a good husband, you've been a good tax-paying citizen of the state of Missouri. That leads me to believe you are a good man and a changed man." And 10 minutes into the hearing, the judge ruled that he was going to give Mike Anderson credit for all 4,794 days between his first conviction and when he was arrested last year, meaning he was a free man, meant to be released immediately, with orders to go back to his family, who were all in that courtroom, who broke out in sobs hearing the verdict. Happy sobs, thanking God and screaming and smiling and laughing. He left the court with his wife, his 3-year-old daughter, and his grandmother, and he was so happy entering the car. He said, "Very happy. My faith has always been in God. I'm just so thankful. I just thank God for everybody." And surprisingly, the victim of this robbery, who is still alive today, said that he agrees with the verdict of letting him go. He said after the robbery, he was so paranoid that they would come back for him that he became a recluse, he quit his job, and his marriage crumbled. He had a daughter that came home one day talking about this whole thing, saying that this man wasn't put in prison for 13 years and now he was going to go back to prison. And she was asking her father what he thought about this whole thing, not knowing that he was in fact that victim. But he told her that they should leave Mike Anderson alone. He wasn't out robbing other people, and he seemed to have his life together. He said, "You've got to give the guy a little bit of slack. I mean, yeah, he screwed up when he was little, but the law dropped the ball. The law ought to drop it completely. They need to leave the man alone." Do you think it was right of them to just let him go after 1 year being in prison officially? I thought this was an incredible story because, yes, this man messed up when he was a boy, but the amount of good that he changed his life into is miraculous, really. His life obviously had a bigger purpose, and he really got to show the world how good of a person he could be, because we see so many times that people go into prison and come out even worse, or definitely not better than they were before, because they learn other traits, or they're put through such bad situations in prison that makes them such a cruel, heartless person when they come out. Not everyone, but it can definitely do that to a person. And he could have easily ran away once he realized they weren't coming for him after years. Can you imagine getting away with something like that for so long? And he didn't have a thought in his head to run away or to go hide out somewhere. He was ready to accept his consequences, and he didn't hide himself at all. I mean, he got married twice during that time, meaning like names were out there on legal documents. He wasn't hiding anything. And I think that that's ultimately probably why he did get let out in the end, because he was such an honest man and he wasn't hiding. He didn't run away to lead this glamorous, free lifestyle. He just wanted a nice life while he was waiting, basically. And I do want to say that the fact that the victim's life was turned upside down after that robbery, and he still wants this man, his attacker, to be free, is so incredibly strong of him. Mentally, physically, to know that he did become a good person and to give him that forgiveness, that takes such a strong, beautiful person on the inside. And this whole case just gave me chills reading about it, because it's such a good story that, yes, he was bad as a child. He did do horrible things, but he grew up and he became a good person. And I think we can all do that if we try hard enough. We can all be good people no matter our situation. But what I want to know is, what the heck happened? How was this overlooked for 13 years? And was his first attorney ever looked into, or ever, arrested for never turning him in, because you would think if this attorney noticed that his client was never going to jail, he would have said something to the courts, but maybe he was covering up for him as well. I think that that's really strange. Maybe he forgot about it in his workload. You never know. I don't want to blame him. Mike Anderson did say that he sent them his new address. He would ask around to when he was going to prison. So it's not like they were being hush-hush about anything. So maybe this attorney did talk to them about, you know, are you going to send my client to jail anytime soon? And they were just like, oh, yeah. And so eventually he was just like, whatever, like, it's your problem. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily anything evil going on behind the scenes. We could make it into this big conspiracy, but I think it was just a whole bunch of forgetful people who messed up big time. But I'd love to hear your theories on what you think really did happen down below, and if you know of any instances where this happened again, because it's one of the most insane stories that I have ever read about. But I wanted to do kind of an uplifting one today, because we do talk a lot about deaths and murder, and just very sad where the victim dies or where they don't get to live a good life. And this one is just such a good video. It's a good uplifting type of content. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope that you take the message that no matter what, you can have a good life and you will be rewarded for being a good person in the end. So yeah, don't forget I'm posting 31 days of continuous content for Wicked Winter, so please come back tomorrow if you would like. I would love to see you and comment back to you down below if you leave one. But yeah, don't ever forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay, bye.
I believe we all have a chance to be good, regardless of our childhood.